Welcome, everyone. I'm Brian O'Leary, the Executive Director of the Book Industry Study Group, and I appreciate you coming to today's webinar on typography as a sustainable strategy. We're lucky to have both Klaus and Andreas, who I'll introduce in a moment, to talk about their work on this important subject. Just as a reminder, if you've been here before, you know that the best way to get questions put into the conversation is to put them in the Q&A box that's available typically on the bottom of your screen. You can also use the chat, but it's a little bit easier for us to both segment and track the questions if you use the Q&A box. Please do it throughout the presentation. We'll have time at the end, probably 20 to 25 minutes, where Klaus and Andreas will be able to answer your questions and comments. But in the meantime, just use that and we'll keep track of them as we go along. So our presenters today both come from 2K Denmark. Klaus Krogh is the founder and CEO. 2K is an award-winning type foundry, design, and typesetting company. And they're also a concept developer for Bibles worldwide. Klaus has served as national chairman of the Society of Book Craftsmanship in Denmark from 1998 to 2005. And he's president of the Society of Bible Craftsmanship in Washington since 2021. He was appointed Honorary Consul of Mexico by the Queen of Denmark in 2010. That sounds like a much more impressive honor than anything we have at BISG, so you'll probably have a few minutes at the end to explain that to us. Andreas Stopperup works as project leader and is educated in international trade and marketing, specializing in sustainability and supply chain management. So that's topics that are near and dear to the heart of those who work at BISG. So with his specialization in supply chain management, Andreas focuses on optimizing the publishing industry's supply chain to do things like reduce waste, increase efficiency, and minimize the overall environmental impact of its practices. His goal is to create sustainability solutions that are accessible to all industry players, regardless of their size or financial strength, something that I think you'll have a chance to hear about in today's talk. So Klaus is going to kick us off, and I want to thank Klaus and Andreas for being here. Take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Brian, for this introduction, and not least, thank you very much that we can present what is very close to our hearts, the opportunity to give back what all the books we've read have given us, so sort of the carrier of all our society and our all we know, probably read from books somewhere. We are Bible designers, and as Bible designers, we try for 40 years we've tried to create Bibles as a tool. Many of you might know that there's 4,500,000 letters in a Bible, and to try to present the Bible as readable as possible, we really struggled to design typefaces that were capable of doing that, create new kind of designs that could carry the message of the text, to make sure that the Bible was on the fewest amount of pages with the highest possible readability. Change, please, Andreas. So about a year ago, Andreas started in our company, and we had a discussion on what he could contribute. And there was one thing that had been on my mind for a while. That was, how can you take everything we've done for Bibles the last 40 years and turn it into general advantage for the publishing industry? And we came up with the name Sustainable Typesetting, and that basically contains of 3 different things. So it has to be sustainable. We want to try to help reduce CO2 emission in book production, but not only production, transportation, storage, shipping again, and so on and so forth. The second thing we want to do is to ensure that book publishing and everything that goes with it has as the sustainability economical profile. So if we can reduce some of your production costs, that might be at the same time, it might be preferable. And the last thing, to enhance the readability. Because a book is not sustainable if it's not read. You publish books to have them read, and the readability has become a bigger and bigger issue because by a lot of people, especially in Western Europe. But I'll come back to this in a moment. But these are the three things that we has as the ambition that sustainable typesetting should cover: sustainability, profitability, and readability. Andreas will take it away on sustainability now, and I'll come back a little later.
Yes, thank you, Brian. I will start off with sustainability with a case example from Kabelendam, who's also represented today, I believe. There are several other examples out there of this, but it's to kind of show that the black and white picture regarding ebooks versus paper books or physical books of what's more sustainable. It's not as easy as it seems. Kabelendam has done a lot of sustainability initiatives and are very efficient in their production. And the result of them, when they have closed the life cycle analysis and acquired a lot of data, just shows that their paper books is actually slightly better environmental-wise than their electronic equivalents. Now, there are a lot of different things that go into this, and it's not necessarily the case for all, but it's just to show that when production has been enhanced as greatly as possible for sustainability in many regards, the environmental impact is much closer than many believe. And this is even without us further enhancing it. So you can't definitively say that ebooks are better for the environment than the other thing. And that is just because that's an argument we run into a lot. But there are a lot of factors into this. Then again, it's important to note that when you source paper from the right resources, it really is one of the only sustainable raw materials in the world we have to work with. So paper books are not per definition bad. For publishers and many other products, it's important to note that the design phase determines 80% of the emission the product is going to have. So as a design company, it's important to look at today that you have to design for sustainability. And that's quite complex, but it has a big impact if it's done right. As Klaus said, we achieved to do three things. And when we started with looking at sustainability and what we were able to influence, we were able to also add value to the consumer because they appreciate more sustainable products. And we're at the same time able to reduce the production cost of the products. So we actually got all three of these types or ways to design in one. And that's what we think people should look into for sustainability. When the last thing for the sustainability part is one of the things that Klaus also said is that the book has to be read and bought. So you have to be aware of consumer trends. So you're actually able to design for what the consumers are telling you they want to invest in. When we look at the consumers, then this is just an example of how consumers are willing to pay more for more sustainable products. The graph shows that the number of environmental claims a product has increased sales compared to baseline across a variety of the products. It also showed that less general claims actually further increased sales. There's a bit of speculation in this, but it mostly has to do with that when you talk about sustainability and environmental claims, it's important to be as transparent as possible. So when you put something on a product that says carbon neutral, it's a general claim, and it's great if a company has achieved that. But it's not necessarily easy for a consumer to see what measurement has been taken to accomplish that. Sustainable typesetting, as an example, is very specific, and it applies to a very specific part of the product that the consumer can look into. For the sustainability, we know we work in scope 1, 2, and 3. And we see as a publisher, of course, the scope 3 is by far the biggest place of emissions. So what we want to look at is if you're able to control or rethink design, as we saw, the choices you make have the biggest influence on the emissions. So when you influence the design, you get a direct influence on your scope 3 emissions of the product. Which have a big impact. And when you work with sustainability, there are a lot of different goals you work with. You can have 5 years out in the future, 10 years next year. What's important to consider is the return on investment, where you can see that that's right for your company at the current moment. Then look into what you can do immediately that has an impact on your supply chain. And with what we try to achieve is to make sure that sustainability didn't cost money, because the publishing industry has some challenges the past years, as you all know. So investing heavily in environmental procedures can be very costly. So it's important to find something that everybody can apply, no matter your financial strength. And when we see what we do, the profitability wise, it's not the rocket science that reducing raw materials and production time and energy cost and weight and volume, etc., by 20% gives an advantage or a bigger profit. But what we know is that the amount of pages we reduce, it's equivalent to the same amount of CO2 emission and raw material savings. And furthermore, when you design for sustainability and achieve it rightly so, you can increase your brand and marketing value at the same time. And it gives you an increased markup for the publisher or whoever works with it to be able to invest in other areas that you find more pressing at the time, or what fits you better. And simply what we try to illustrate with this is that the design phase influences everything that comes after. You should, of course, try to choose the right amount or the right paper weight for your product. Let's say 80 grams, and you can choose 60 grams and reduce your paper usage. But it's really important to reduce the amount of pages to reduce the production time of the book. So you want to reduce the amount of pages at the same time, and preferably combine both to achieve the best environmental footprint you can. By reducing the amount of paper and pages, it also, in the other end, for bigger publishers at least, the amount of books that gets returned that has to be shredded, you also reduce the amount of paper and energy in that end. But a lot of this is case specific to a publisher, so bear in mind that this is generally speaking. And for all of this to work, as Klaus said in the beginning, there's a lot of many years of experience working with complex typesetting, and now we'll try to explain how that is achieved.
Yes. So we want to achieve three things. We want to reduce the CO2 emission. We want to create a better economy in book publishing, but we also want to achieve a better result in readability. And you might say that's obviously completely impossible to do all three things at the same time, but it isn't. Many years of experience being a type foundry, we've found that we can actually enhance the type design by even out the strokes, having a bigger X height, a lot of things that's displayed on this poster here. The next thing is that we can control white space. When we read just as much white space as we read black space. And if you control that, so control the letter spacing to create beautiful words, if you control the spaces between words to adjust for the spacing in the letters, and if you then control the lettering so that you have a white cloud that's very even around every word, our lazy brains actually read better. So, and if you administer that in the right way, you can actually create more readability on the same real estate. And the real estate is, of course, your page, but your page can also be, we have certain rules, and I know them all, and I love to follow them, but sometimes you have to look at a rule as just a pointer for where there is a problem. And in this case, your margins and your white spaces might be reduced to create, to enlarge your real estate. So we do all three things, and we claim that we have a higher readability, even saving 20 or 30% of the page count. On the next slide, you would see a simple comparison. And have a look at it. So on the left side, you've got Garamond, often used, Renaissance type of typeface. It's nice, it's beautiful, I love it. But it's exactly the same real estate on the right side, on sustainable serif, the typeface designed and produced by 2K, where you can, there's probably not much doubt that the right one is more readable than the left one. And it looks much bigger. But it's the same size and it takes up the same real estate. And that's down to the design of the single lettering. And if you have a look here at the Garamond 12 point and the sustainable serif 12 point, you will actually have to enlarge your Garamond to 15 times 25 to have the same body of in the letters. And it still builds more. You see the H height is above the line. To be a little bit practical on what we do, here's a general novel. It could be anything. This is a Spanish novel published by Lifeway. And they gave us this and said, well, okay, there's 1,576 characters on a page. What could we do with that? And to show you the comparison, this is sustainable serif. It has an ample space between the letters, the words, and the lines. It uses the margins a little better, but we at the same time save 30% of the pages. And that means saving 30% of the paper, but also the printing time, most of the binding, the transportation, the storage, the shipment again, and if books are returned, then you have so you're saving all the steps through your production line, and 30%. Just to show you, please step 2 back. Yes, this is the page, the layout, the design we want to show you, and the next page is actually how much more text you get on a spread. So this is and with a higher readability at the same time. if you go to the next, so we can execute this on a lot of different books. For instance, the next slide is more of a dictionary, or no, not dictionary.
Encyclopedic reading work.
Encyclopedic. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And when we did the redesign of this, we came up with this design, still a higher readability, and we saved 38% of the page count, as you see on the next slide. This is what we added. Of course, you don't have to add that much. So we don't go and claim that we can take any book and save 38% of the pages. And we don't have to. So 20% will give you an even higher readability and legibility as well. It's what you prefer. I said, well, people in the Western Hemisphere, on all the research I've seen and what we've executed ourselves, we find that people want bigger and bigger typefaces. I'm sure a lot of you have got feedback from your readers that they can't read the text, and strangely enough, it's general readers. It's not bound to old age and a weaker eyesight. Everybody wants a bigger typeface. Maybe it's down to the actual fact that you've been reading on an iPad, where you can decide the typeface yourself and typeface size yourself, and you get used to a bigger typeface. Now back to the same Spanish novel. This is the original, 575 characters per page. So instead of trying to say 30% of the page count, you might go to large print. This is very much bigger, and it qualifies as a large print. It's got exactly the same number, 1,577 letters on a page. Please flip back and forth a little bit on these two. So this one and this one is exactly the same page count. So if you want to treat your readers to a much different reading experience, of course, you don't have the savage on as many pages, but you will get a large print book with the same number of pages as an ordinary book. So it actually qualifies in another category without becoming any bigger. Yes. So what do we deliver? Well, to use the sustainable typesetting technology, every publishing house has to have a license. Pretty easy, and of course also license some of the sustainability typesetting fonts to be able to execute this, and the design of templates has to be approved as sustainable typesetting, so that we protect the branding. By the way, our brand is registered and patented in the EU and the UK and the US. So we want to defend it. Then what 2K delivers and others, you might have internal services or external services delivering book design and complete typesetting. We do as well. And we do make custom fonts for publishing houses. For HarperCollins alone, we made 7 complete typeface families. So that's also a possibility, enhancing even further your branding value of the sustainable typesetting with your own font might be just the right choice for you. We don't intend to create all the typesetting in the world, although that sounds nice. So we've actually made a system where the publisher acquires a license, they either go to K and ask us to do a design and a sustainable typesetting. We can do that. We can make sure you can test it out on a small number of books or whatever, but we've opened up for your internal typesetting department to take a course and get a certification so they can do the design. Whatever design template is done, then have that tested and approved, and then you can go ahead and do your typesetting in-house, or if you prefer a third-party typesetter outside, get the course and the certification, doing the design, having that design approved, and do the typesetting. So you don't have to change very much in the way you actually execute today, only making sure that you get all the advantages of sustainable typesetting this way. Okay. I'm completely open, or we both are, for questions, and we would love to answer anything you might ask.
Well, thank you, Andreas and Klaus. We have actually several questions already, and I'm sure we'll have some more as we go forward. Perhaps I could start at the beginning. So Sophie was asking, you'd mentioned just at the outset the study of the sustainability of paper books, but she's wondering, does it include biodiversity effects? Kind of what are the assumptions with respect to paper sourcing? Do they come from plantations, and perhaps those plantations themselves are a problem because of water use and other things? Do you know the sourcing of that particular study?
Yeah. For many places, they seek to use something like a FSC paper from or responsible managed forest. I know that there can be some problems with the biodiversity in that regard. If we have to extrapolate it all out, then hopefully when you use less paper, you would require less trees to be cut down for the paper. But it also opens up for a possibility that when the places that use that type of forest management would be able to create areas with a bigger biodiversity, with planting different trees and so on. But that's another discussion. But yeah, we know the biodiversity part is one of the things that you have to look into. But again, with paper, in the end, it can be decomposed or used for other things. Something like an e-reader is only produced for land waste in the end. So there are a lot of different factors you have to be aware of. But yeah, biodiversity is also a thing. It's a lot harder to get the best possible data on, but that's hopefully coming the following years. But we know that FSC and other sustainable forest management also are very aware of that.
So
it's very
go ahead, Klaus, you first.
So it's very important to know that you decide. So publishers pay the bill in this sense. So you are paying your printer to buy the paper, so you can decide where they buy the paper, and if that paper is made by recognition of all sustainability items, also keeping as many animals alive as possible. We have played a little bit around in our heads if publishers were to save 20% of their paper consumption. You could, of course, ask the paper producers to leave 20%, not forested, but leave that to become old forests. If you actually did that, you would printing books would be a plus instead of a minus in your CO2 calculation. But that of course is a little bit dreaming in a future. But actually, if you decided to go this way, the economy that's release the sort of the 20% less over your complete production line might be used to pay a little extra for the paper if they left the forest standing, the 20% that you didn't use. So that will help diversity as well.
Yeah, and these we work. She works within the Green Book Alliance to better understand these issues. They are complicated, and it's certainly, I mean, print or paper versus digital is, I think, is unresolved. It depends a little bit on the use cases, but it also depends on some of the assumptions about devices as well as sourcing. So certainly biodiversity is an important consideration, as you point out, Klaus. Roger is asking a question that I think goes back to a slide that you presented, Andreas, early on. You identified that the design phase determines 80% of admissions, and he was just pushing back, saying that seemed high to him. And his question is, wouldn't the amount of content as well as the paper sourcing strategy and manufacturing methodology have as much, if not more, impact on the design of the book? Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, just shortly, it's an average for what the raw materials and everything else that goes into the book can be determined in the beginning, like page count and trim size, and there are a lot of things that goes into that. But for some it might seem high, but it also depends on what you control in your supply chain and so on. But the amount of emissions that can be determined, we know that the paper part is a very big part of the emissions of a book. So reducing that is the first step. And of course, it can seem high. I can't tell you if it's 70% or 65% somewhere for you. It really depends on the data that's available, and it can vary from publisher to publisher depending on where your production is most efficient and probably where you have put in any sustainable initiatives already. There are a lot of factors. I hope that answers the questions, or else you're welcome to send an email with more details to answer it.
Thanks, and we probably will have time if Roger wants to cycle back. Kathy was asking about the graph about consumers preferring environmentally sustainable books, and she's wondering if the data for that particular study was from Europe or was it more global?
That is a study published from all different product categories from McKinsey, so it should be available on their homepage, or you should be able to Google it quite quickly. Then you can find it from US consumption.
And I think that this kind of loops back a little bit to something that you were talking about, Klaus. Andreas is asking, what Adobe fonts would be comparable to your custom sustainable font? Are there analogs or fonts that would be a direct comparison?
So we spend a lot of time defining what a sustainable font is, and that's it needs to be at least 50% of the full size of the font should be X height, for instance, and you find that in other typefaces as well. We are currently making up a list of all the typefaces that can be used for sustainable typesetting, and more people make typefaces that actually can be treated to create the result of sustainable typesetting. We want to help out, so we want to on the website, and I will advise everybody to just go and have a look, or just write sustainable typesetting on Google. You'll find us as the first thing that's shown. We have the intention to make a list of all the typefaces you can use, so you don't have to acquire one of the ones we've designed. We will also, for all the external typesetters that want to qualify as sustainable typesetting vendors, make a list of those, so you can go to our website, have a look, and find a typesetter near you that you can deliver your typesetting services. We don't want to close this door on something that we would want to sell to the whole world. This is an initiative that where we really want to see a change for a more sustainable book production and all. And for that, we need to pitch in, all of us, to get there. So a list is coming up. Yes, there are more also typefaces what we haven't designed, and we will tell about them when we have that list ready.
Well, thank you for that. And maybe in a related way, Rachel's asking, does your research in any way touch upon the extent to which hyphenation might impede readability? And she's asking if it does impede readability, do you recommend adjusting justification settings to allow for either tighter or looser letter spacing?
No. So this is one of my favorite questions. No, ever keep words as they are. Don't divide the words on lines. To do that, and to do that in a way, I told about this cloud reading. So you read white space together with the black space in the letters. So a ragged right is much preferable, because then you control the word spacing and the spaces between the letters much easier, and you can find the optimal result there. For those of you who will say, well, our customers doesn't like it, I think that's over exaggerated, because customers like a lot of stuff. I will say, if you can achieve this cloud reading where all the letters are in the same white cloud, and you could only do that by very long lines, that's adjusted, or a ragged line if the lines get shorter. So that is my clear recommendation. Don't allow InDesign or whatever program you use to ruin the readability by forcing equal length of the lines.
Roger's asking, and this actually probably plays well to your strengths with respect to you've done a lot of different types of books with sustainable typography. How does the design impact metrics adjust for different book types? So trade novels versus education textbooks, when taking into account the end user goals, needs, and desires for reading. He adds, because readability is only a piece of the equation with textbooks, you also have accessibility concerns where fonts and design are a big factor, information retention and recall. I mean, how do you think about it for different types of books?
Yes, Andreas, I think you should tell about the books in your university.
Yeah, our university, of course, we have a lot of different books, and I'm sure everyone has had a school book that they're tired of carrying. And we have a marketing book, very big book, 3 kilograms, 6 pounds, 1,000 pages. It's not easy to carry around, but simply by readjusting design and combining like typographic best practices along with the typefaces, we were able to reduce that book by 400 pages, and we could easily go a format down if that was the case. But it's just to show that it goes together with the design choices, of course, and for all students. We talked to in our research, they actually much preferred reading in the physical books, and it's much easier to take notes on a screen while reading the book. The ebook is probably easier for distribution and so on, but also much of what we do is from a lot of the scientific literature on readability, and also about memory retention and so on for different types of text and books. So it is really specific to the product that you have, but there are variations, of course, between what the function of the book is meant to be. If it's something you have to scan quickly for information, you're actually able to save quite a bit more than in a novel where you have to read for longer periods of time. We've seen savings from 20% on already compressed and condensed novels, and all the way up to 60% saved on normal textbooks for schools. So that's it's a wide range you can work from, and of course design combined with the typesetting principles you use to optimize space, along with the right typeface, etc. It's easier to show examples of it if you have something specific in mind.
Yes, and yes, we can save 60% on a textbook for schools. Should you save 60%? I don't know. Probably not. You probably save 30% and spend the 30% on a little bit more white space in the margins, a little bit bigger typeface, but the saving you can get, that's for sure. And you can even have more satisfied readers by a bigger typeface. So there's a lot of places where you can save, and I'll really encourage everybody to challenge us on this. So if anybody here wants to see one of their problem books that you want to have a higher readability, or you want quite a number of fewer pages, send us a mail, send us an InDesign package and a PDF file, and we will send you some samples on what sustainable typesetting could do for you, reducing the number of pages and enhancing your readability and your aesthetics as well.
Bryn is asking with respect to dyslexia. So is a sustainable typesetting font designed with dyslexia in mind? And particularly with the emphasis on legibility, it seems like there would be a great opportunity here to combine sustainability with inclusivity.
So today we 2K Denmark agreed with Cambridge University Press, Cambridge University Department of Readability to enter into a cooperation. 2K have already made an inclusive typeface called Grace. It's been tested out in schools in Germany and in the UK. We know it works, so we will be the first one out with a truly designed typeface that actually solves problems for dyslexic readers and indeed for other reading disabilities. So it's really an inclusive reading typeface. Now, is that sustainable typesetting? Yes, it is, in the way that you have to take extra care and considerations on how you make your design rules and how you typeset and so on. So it's not the same thing, but it's the same ambition. We would like everybody to read more, because reading is probably the best thing you do for your brain. And reading means different things for different people. We have very, very high ambitions on the work we're going to execute with Cambridge University. We will this year have the Grace Dyslexic Typeface presented, and we will start working on what we are now called the Typeface #2, which is all the different reading disadvantages you can have turned into data programs made by Cambridge University, so we can test out. So there will be a #2 is but just the first one of the new typefaces that are really made to allow reading for everybody. I mean, we are born speakers, we are born listeners, but we are not born readers. To read, we have to rewire our brains to understand what we see, these letterscapes, these little words, how they are turned into a picture, recognized and turned into the middle of your brain to understand it as communication, and then to your forehead to understand the content. That's not easy. And for some people, it's even very difficult. And if we can just help a little bit in our cooperation with Cambridge University to create fonts that allow more people to read more, well, we will be very happy. And we might come back and tell about it in a year or so, the work we do for dyslexic and inclusive readers.
I've got a couple of questions. So go ahead, Andreas.
Just
I'll wait.
to add quickly to that is that there are very specific problems many might have with reading, and there are many subjective opinions, but we do simply know that the X side of the letter is very important for how easy it is to read, and the bigger the letter, the easier it is to read, and that's also very important for people with dyslexia. And the older people get, unfortunately, it gets a bit harder to read small letters. So that really is an inclusive and also a sustainability part of it, because you want to make sure that the book you typeset is being sold in the bookstore or on the web, and not just discarded because somebody opens the book and just sees, I can't read that. So the book won't be sold, and then it's not sustainable. So it's really important not to go below any specific X heights that general readability research suggest that you should. And so there are a lot of things that goes into it. So it all works together for the specific book, and the design and the Grace dyslexic typeface really has something that hasn't been used before. So it's another exciting part also for sustainability and inclusivity.
So continuing with this theme a little bit, a publisher asks, how does your sustainable typesetting address accessibility, which you started to talk about here? And the further question is, have these typefaces and layouts been assessed by experts with visual impairments and or dyslexia, among other considerations? It sounds like the answer to that is, the second question is yes.
Yeah, that's yes. So we work, I think, with the best in the business. Cambridge University has for a long time been specialized in readability and testing out different disabilities that hinder the reading. So I think we work together with the best research department in the world for that. And we for sure are going to use all we can in design and typeface design and what we've learned through 40 years to try to visualize what they found was problems and try to visualize the solution in our type design. That's our ambition, yes.
And just as a contribution to the conversation, Kathy added in response to accessibility that she had read that that we should be setting our email font to 14-point type, although it's not probably a sustainable font, but and obviously people can change their email settings as well to enlarge type.
There you go. It's exactly the same thing. So we in the Western Hemisphere seem to like bigger and bigger fonts. Although we don't have any specific problems with reading, we don't have any specific problems with our eyes seeing it, but we just like bigger and bigger fonts. That's something you have to be aware of when you do your publishing.
So Andrea is asking a question that I think is central to part of your value proposition, or the one that you hold dear. She's saying, for a very small publisher, publishing a handful of books a year at most, often print on demand, is there a way to achieve these practices? And Andreas, I think that's part of what you try to think about in your sustainability planning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, of course. What we do, we create typeface or templates that are able to be used, and it depends on how you get your books typeset. One of the things that we do by reducing the page count is also making the typesetting cheaper for a smaller publisher, because you have 20-25% less pages you have to get typeset. So that's one part of it, but the cost of getting it on a book is really incorporated in probably what you're already doing. If you typeset your book yourself, then you will see that if you get a template and a design, then quite quickly the first time you print, you would have made up for the cost of the typesetting of the book in the first place. So there are some things there, but that's actually something that's something we've looked into very much, because we've talked with the Society of Authors and so on, and we know that they have they want to contribute to creating a more sustainable industry, and they do a lot of it themselves, and also do the print on demand and so on. So the solution is financially available for no matter how many books you publish.
Just one more thing. So seen from a sustainable point of view, if you do print on demand, it's a Xerox process, and that's 5 to 10 times more polluting than the actual, if you were to print 2,000 books in offset. So the reduction of the number of pages when you do print on demand is even more important, seen from a sustainability point of view.
Edson's asking if you've had a chance to analyze ink usage using sustainable typesetting. From his review, it looks like it might require more ink. Is that something you've tested?
Yes, and we have so on a general book, printed 3,000 copies. How much of the costs and the sustainability is the ink? And if I will answer that question myself, it's something less than 1%. So in the total production price of a book, the ink is less than 1% of the total emission and total cost. I know that some very clever boy in the US found out that if you were to go from Helvetica to Baskerville, I think it was, you would save trillions of dollars in less powder when you print public documents. And so that has sort of turned into a story that the ink is a big issue. Well, if you think 1% is a big part, well, then ink is a big issue. And if we turn from a normal phase to this more bolder looking typeface, of course, we will probably use 20% more ink. That means it's 1.2% instead of 1%. So
you would use 20% more ink, but on potentially 20% fewer.
Go 1% of the total cost and emission to 1.2% of the total cost and emission. So compare that to the 20% we save by doing it. Well, yeah, it's still 1%.
There are a couple of questions with respect to glyphs. Maybe I can pose both of them and you can consider them together. One is, my organization publishes scientific journals with a significant number of special characters, e.g., and with an X and a Mac with a macron above, an M with an under dot. How robust are this sustainable typesetting glyphs? And the second question is kind of seconding that. Can we publish books with indigenous languages, typefaces that include some of these diacritics? Currently are very limited.
Yeah, well, all of that. So I have before I started 2K Denmark, I was the designer and production manager in the Norwegian Bible Society. We made a lot of different complicated languages, so I know what needs to go into a typeface before it's complete. I think we use all Unicode standards, and there's nothing we can't typeset. And if there were something that was outside the Unicode, we'd just create it. So that's the big advantage of being a type designer and a typesetter at the same time. If there's something you need, you'll just go and design it, and it'll be okay. But as they are, the typefaces, they're Unicode complete.
There are, I think I have about 3 questions left. If I could, Laura's asking, where are the sustainable typography typefaces available for licensing? She particularly would like to share them with designers for consideration on future projects. I think, Klaus, you pointed to your site, but maybe there are some other resources.
No, not at the moment. It's very important to say that it's not a question about the typefaces themselves. So sustainable typesetting is not about one typeface or a group of typefaces. It's about the whole technology that goes into how you use them. And you can't just take the typeface and see whether somebody likes it and what they can do about it. That's not that doesn't qualify as sustainable typesetting. You need to know what goes into creating the right readability and the right economy to save the pages, and not, mix it up. There's a recipe to this, and if you don't follow the recipe, you don't get sustainable typesetting. But we will make the list of typefaces, and you are more than welcome just to look at the list and use the typeface how you'd like to use your typefaces. I mean, this is an opportunity. It's nothing. That's nothing, and you can even buy the sustainable typeface and use it any way you like. But turning it into sustainable typesetting, there's a lot more to it.
And then Rachel's asking, I'm sorry, Andreas, you finished, and then I'll come back.
No, it's just that there are a lot of details that go into this when we talk about it. If you have something specific you think of, you're more than welcome to just contact us, and we can probably help with some information you're looking for, with the links and so on to research and whatever you need. But it's very substantial, and it is a recipe, and a lot of things go into it. So it's just to say that something like that is something we can help with if she just contacts us, and then it's easier to go from there.
Yes, and everybody's welcome to contact us, whatever problem you've got, and we would love to have a look at it. And if we can't help, that's why we're here. So just contact us.
Yeah, Rachel was asking, following up on your comments about hyphenation. With the rag right typesetting you recommend for legibility, is it best to turn hyphenation off, or does that cause too much added length for sustainability?
Yeah, so I will always look at what are the audience. Are they used to look at text with hyphenations? Do that. I'd much rather have hyphenations and keep the word spaces and letter spaces even, to be more economical, because it is more economical with hyphenation for sure, and hyphenation doesn't ruin your sustainable efforts. So, but keep it readable, and kept most readable is keeping the distance between the letters and the words.
I think the last question we have is one from Kay, asking if you had the ability to speak to sustainability and of simultaneous print and digital production. I'm not sure that's in your wheelhouse, is it?
No. So we don't print anything. Actually, we'd love to help you calculate. Andreas is very, very good at calculating different options of printing or offset printing or digital printing. So we are capable of giving you the figures for whatever product you want to produce, and how much emission you would cause. For sure, digital printing is the most polluting printing method. You should take more care if you do print on demand or only digital printing to reduce your number of pages. That's where it creates the highest benefit. Offset printing, has turned very, very reasonable in the way they and their emissions and so on. And a lot of work has been done there. But I realized that not all books are sold in more than 1,000 copies. So there you go. You have to have both.
Well, Klaus and Andreas, when we were doing our planning, you thought that we would we might need to have as much as a half hour to be able to answer questions, and you were exactly right. We've had dozens of questions. I appreciate your both the presentation as well as the thoughtful consideration you've given to the answers that people have for the questions people have raised. We look forward to talking to you more about this in the future, and thanks for making the time today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Take care.